our next speaker today is Pamela Kamholz. She is a respite care coordinator at Elder Network and a very active community member of Alexandria area. She's also ready to help folks in need and a true agent, I would call, keen on aging policies and services. So she also completed her healthcare directive facilitated by the written gift. So please welcome Pamela.
Hello.
Hi, Pam. Yeah.
Hi. Yes. Thank you so much for asking me to speak today. It's a real honor. And I believe you asked me to speak to Elder Network and my work there. So I'll talk a little bit about that at first. For those of you that don't know what Elder Network is, it is a volunteer organization, volunteer-based organization. And what we do is train volunteers to support people in the community who were either caregiving or experiencing loneliness and social isolation, which has been huge during the COVID pandemic. And like I said, our volunteers are trained, but we have 3 part-time professional staff. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about my thoughts and findings working as a coordinator for the past 5 years. And I do bring this wonderful brochure with me whenever I go out on a home visit, when we have our initial intake and get acquainted. And it is a lengthy process, but at the end, we ask our client who they want for an emergency contact person. And so we get that down, and then I ask, okay, does this person know what your healthcare wishes are? And oftentimes I just get this blank look. And sometimes they even say, well, yeah, our son knows. Okay, does your doctor know? And where is this document? Kind of like our other speakers have talked about, which leads to a whole other conversation. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, we want a DNR. Okay. Then we talk a little bit more about, well, if your husband who has moderate dementia would be, death would be imminent. Do you know if he wants a feeding tube? Do you know if he wants to be in ICU when he dies? Do you know where he wants to be when he dies? And so this opens up another discussion. Some people say they don't want to talk about it, and then I just leave the pamphlet with my brief explanation. And if they're interested at all, I do a follow-up phone call and say, okay, I left that brochure. Did you look it over? Would you like to talk about it now? And if they're not really interested, but they're willing to hear more, and this is what I love, I get to refer to Preeti and the written gift, because I can call there and share the information, and then they can take that avenue with my client. So it's a gift to me too. And I had a client recently who I worked with, and it was a long process, but I had to keep calling her and saying, well, have you completed the paperwork? Okay, well, I'll call you next week and see if you got that paperwork done. So she called me and she goes, guess what? The paperwork's done. Everybody has a copy. Thank you so much. And so they had a weekend together with their family and completed the paperwork. And I'm pretty sure you worked with them. And so, like I said, that was a gift for me too. Some of the findings I have are that probably 80% of my clients have a very loose plan. Like they say, yes, we don't want to be resuscitated. And my daughter knows that. And then I say, well, how many children do you have? Does the rest of your family know that? Does your doctor know that? And so it triggers a lot of conversation. And that's where most of my clients are at, is at that point. About 10% have everything covered and it's great. And 10% haven't even given it a thought. So there's a lot of education to be done. And speaking of education, we educate our volunteers regarding the written gift as well. It's part of our orientation. And then we have monthly volunteer meetings where we bring in pertinent topics. And we've had the written gift come and speak to our group at least twice. So our volunteers not only know it about that for their personal use, but also when they're with their clients and the conversation would come up. And pretty recently had an article in our Elder Network newsletter. And so that pushed it out again to our volunteers. So I think that we're doing a very good job in our community about education. But of course, until you need it, sometimes you don't use it. It's really tough to follow the speakers that have already spoke because they have such wonderful stories. I wrote down a few things. When Emma talked about music, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to tell my husband no country music. I mean, if he does that, I'm not going to die. I'm going to live. So, the music is really important, and I'm going to have to think on that again. And I also liked what the professor said about having a friend be the agent, because I did that the last time I wrote my written gift with Catherine. And I know that with my husband and my children, there could be some stressors about who wants what done when I'm unable to speak for myself. So my best friend is my agent. And everybody has a copy of my healthcare directive, but that will take the stress out of the bedside decision or the angst regarding what would happen to me and what my wishes are. So a little bit of personal experience with the healthcare directive. I was an oncology nurse for 10 years. And it was really surprising how many people were going through that treatment and experience and did not have a healthcare directive. I think that perhaps because people are surviving the treatment and having longer lives, that they have this false sense of security about the next time I have neutropenia or I become septic. They saved me the last time, so I'm going to survive this time as well, so I don't need to be concerned about a written gift. I've had a healthcare directive for about 25 years. I was a single mom, and I thought it would be only fair to my children to have that burden off them and have some adult know what I wanted. Then when I married my second husband, we did healthcare directives together. And then I recently did mine, as I spoke about earlier. So personally, my parents just at 85 worked through a written gift and did healthcare directives. At that point, they had nothing. My mom's exact words were, "This is a morbid conversation. I do not want to talk about it." And I said to my mom, let's rethink that, because when I had my healthcare directive redone, it gave me peace of mind. I do not have to think about that again. The decisions have been made. Everybody knows about it. And I can just have a nice life until it's over. And so I convinced her, and she worked with written gift, and Dad and her both have their healthcare directives in place, which is a huge gift for me because my siblings, we have some tension in the family. So I know that at that point when those decisions need to be made, it could be stressful, but it won't be now. How am I doing for time, Pretty?
You're doing great.
What's
it's good.
that? Okay. So my last personal experience that I'd like to share is the father of my children recently had a heart attack and died at 64. Previously, he had 3 brushes with death. He was in ICU and not expected to live, but he did. I think this gave him a feeling of immortality because he survived those situations. He had no healthcare directive, no will. So now my children, my son's 40, my daughter's 36. They both have families. They both work full time, and they're in the midst of this muddy water. They don't know what he wanted for burial. They don't know where he wanted to be buried or cremated. It's a mess. It's very stressful as a mother to watch her children going through that. And my children are grieving on top of all this stress. So that could have been so much better. So in closing, I want to tell you that I do keep this brochure in my car, on my desk, at work, and a copy at home, because anybody that is willing to hear about it, I love to talk about it. Thank you so much for having me speak today. And as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about your initiative.
Thank you. That was so kind of you, Pam. Really going through each and every logistics of healthcare directive. We so appreciate it, and your personal stories. I think it hits a lot of us. So thank you again.